Hello, and thanks for joining us on another discussion. Today's talk is going to be around enterprise storage and why it's still the best plan for data centers. My name is AJ Casamento. I work for the Brocade Storage Networking division of Broadcom, and I am very, very lucky to be able to do this today with a friend of mine. So the gentleman on the other side of this call is Brian Sherman, who is a distinguished engineer at IBM. And in the IBM Storage Group. And he's been very, very patient with me over the years. And so we're going to pick his brain a little bit today for some additional topics on this. Good morning, Brian. How you doing?
Good day, AJ. Great to be back together again.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I wanted to jump right into sort of the deep end of the pool here is it's interesting to me that many times people seem to approach the concept or the discussion of enterprise storage like it was something that got developed because a bunch of us were sitting around bored on a weekend, over an extra couple of beers, and that's not really the genesis of it, right? There were a whole series of challenges and constraints in storage that caused the development of these tool sets. And I would make the argument that the scalability pieces, the reliability pieces, the ability to do shared storage environments and so on, these are all still mechanisms that are very, very much in demand in data centers.
So I certainly look at it around, okay, what are the capabilities? And whether it's enterprise, whether it's entry, mid-range, in today's world, everybody needs that same level of reliability, availability, performance characteristics, security, especially security these days around access and cybersecurity capabilities. So it's one of those from an IBM perspective that we firmly believe that what historically we've done for enterprise class storage and those characteristics that we're bringing those capabilities across the board, all the way from entry through traditional enterprise type capacity requirements, scale out capabilities, what I can do for around performance and latency, as well as scaling that capacity as our customers need to do it.
And I think as we continue that sort of discussion around when we talk about cyber resilience, I think we both share sort of the headset of this, that it's not solely the security aspect of it that is obviously extremely critical, but it's the uptime, it's the overall resilience of the platform, the availability of the platform, the ability to scale on demand without stopping or pausing the application, because service windows are an ugly conversation with any application owner these days. There's like never a good time to do updates to the environment. So being able to slide that technology in sort of, more or less seamlessly, I think is one of the things that people have sort of lost track of when they think about storage arrays, from their traditional suppliers. In part, you folks have made that so straightforward in many cases that people have forgotten all the things you're doing underneath the covers, right? And so then they get this sort of interesting headset of, well, we'll just take those, several hundred disk drives and we'll just put them into individual server platforms, scatter them about the data center floor, and software will just take care of everything, right?
Not really. Yeah. So yeah, and there's certainly a place for software defined or HCI environments. And they certainly fit, just like our traditional arrays, fit in certain environments around, again, whether it's latency, performance, availability, reliability, scalability, any of those metrics that, again, the traditional enterprise storage that we classified. But the other new technologies certainly have a place and leverage the technologies where it makes sense for what the application requirements are. And one of the things that I spend a lot of time is, okay, if you're doing some sort of like an HCI type of deployment, that's fine. Back to what's your mission critical workload and your recovery time if there is a DR event or a cyber event. So, again, we're doing things on the array where I can, take a secure immutable on the array. I can recover it from the array. Well, if you're in an HCI infrastructure, you're going to be relying on a backup architecture. Doesn't matter whether it's from us or a number of other vendors, but you're relying on that backup architecture and what your network is to recover that. So, remember, I don't know, probably 15, 20 years ago, everybody was talking about backup. And then all of a sudden, everybody realized that, well, it's really restore what we care about. Well, we're in the same world today from a cyber event taking place. If I have to recover, it's what's your network speed or what's your backup appliance speed, and that's how long it's going to take to recover to whatever it is that you're bringing it back from that backup appliance. And so again, those are all things that we talk to our customers about. Is what is your, again, back to recovery time is important. So how fast you need to have your key applications back up and running. That's what it really comes down to, and to leverage the technology that fits what you need to do.
Yeah, and I think one of the one of the things that you just brought up that brings a smile to my face these days. At the time, it was more painful. Is people forget, right, that while you can schedule and architect how your backups and mirror copies get made, right, and so on, recovery happens at the time that an event occurs, right, and it almost never happens at your convenience. It's never a good time to have to do the recovery, and it's interesting to me because what will happen is you're all of a sudden going to start. So you take, there's a software-defined storage architecture out there that when a node goes away, and that node could go away because Brian needed to do a patch to VMware, a security update, right? And so he applies the patch and reboots the server, but that server has disk drives in it that are the storage mount for another application in the network, right? Because that's the software-defined architecture, right? So that storage element just went away. Well, in a failed device or a device going away in storage arrays, right? We immediately do the failovers, the mirror copies. We'll recover the set from hot spares within the platform and so on. They start a timer, right? And the reason they start the timer is they're hoping Brian's just rebooting the server and it's a 2-minute window, right? What they don't want to do is rebuild a 7 terabyte file system across their network, because everybody remembers what that looks like and the impact to all of the other applications that are in flight in that network, right? And so it's not the same thing, right? And again, it's not that there aren't use cases for software-defined storage or for HCI or any of those players. All of that's true, but I would make the argument that if we look at the sort of list of availability, resilience, redundancy, performance, low latency, deterministic delivery of data, and so on, and security, and you start compiling that list, 2 or more of those characteristics needed for your application base sort of leans you in heavily in the direction of storage arrays across a fiber channel storage area network, right? I mean, that's still, there's a reason why all of the alternative technologies say, and we're just as good as fiber channel, or we're almost as good as fiber, and it's because fiber channel is that gold standard for making sure that applications run just as critically as they possibly can. So for mission critical or business critical applications, right? And it's left as an exercise to the student to determine where the line is for business critical within your business, because let's be honest, being adult about it, not every application has the same business criticality to the business, right? Some of them get treated differently.
Yeah, no, for sure, and that's certainly part of it. Again, there's different technologies. Leverage the technology that's appropriate for the the criticality, whether we want to call it tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, whatever, or mission critical, business critical, whatever terms that we want to use. But yeah, all data is not equal. So leverage the technology and the cost point for what the nature of the data needs, and treat it appropriately. Again, not every application is going to need, a 1 or 2 second RPO. Not everything's going to need an immediate recovery from a cyber event. So again, plan that out because it's going to have a different requirement and cost structure associated with that. So lots of different technologies, they all have their place. Leverage, what makes sense for the application.
Yeah, and I think one of the additional benefits I think that comes from having a dedicated, dual redundant hardware architecture, isolated storage networks, is that it also becomes more straightforward to maintain your refresh and upgrade cycles as well as your innovation cycles, right? Because one of the challenges you always get is where are those service windows, right? And so if you've got the dual redundant hardware isolated SAN fabrics, it's easier to apply updates and patches to the platforms non-disruptively, right? Even though we have a nonstop upgrade environment, hot code activation environments regardless. But then also, as we start looking at things like non-volatile memory express as an example coming into the technology, and we see a lot of it on the back end, a lot of the devices moving to NVMe on the back end. Although interestingly enough, the single largest consumption rate of this is laptops and tablets because of the instant on feature of the non-volatile memory express. But from a standpoint of our technology, our shared technology, I look at this as you can seamlessly today run both NVMe over Fibre Channel fabric and SCSI over Fibre Channel fabric in the same fabrics from the same arrays, potentially from the same ports depending on which array type you're taking. And so the advantage I think that yields is it's down to the software. It's down to the application. Is the application going to see a significant enough difference in performance, right, or other characteristics that make it worthwhile to the IT infrastructure team to make that change, right? Because you're not going to just make the change to be able to say, I got the new cool toy. It's going to be for some actual business value.
Yeah, certainly. And I think all of us from a vendor perspective have moved to NVMe at the back end of our arrays for all the great reasons that NVMe exists in parallelism and what we can do. Again, different vendors will have different exploitation and what that means from either throughput or latency perspective. Your mileage will vary, and across the different vendors, and certainly from a host access. Like you said, from our perspective, if you want to run, SCSI over Fibre Channel to one host to us, and a different host is using NVMe over Fibre Channel, great, go for it. You don't want to mix them on the same host, but different hosts. Again, back to your point. Well, what's the requirement, right? That again from our array perspective, with our flash systems, for example, I can be serving up Fibre Channel over SCSI and Fibre Channel NVMe over the same ports to the same storage. Different LUNs, different access, and again, leverage the technology for what makes sense for the application.
Yeah. So I think just sort of settling in on this discussion, overall, when we look at the ability to maintain the infrastructure, I mean, so one of the things that I say to customers is if you exist in IT infrastructure, your best day is when nobody notices that you're there, right? Because when people notice the infrastructure, it's never for a particularly good reason, right? And so again, dropping back to that, if uptime and availability and resilience and recovery mechanisms and latency and having the bell curve for transaction completion be very consistent and very narrow instead of spread all over, right? Because again, various applications have different dependencies. If two or more of those requirements drop into the application need list, then that's going to lean you in the direction of Fibre Channel storage area networking with what I will describe as enterprise storage arrays.
Oh, for sure. And you mentioned it earlier that every other protocol that's evolved through the years has always tried to compare themselves to Fibre Channel. And why? Because Fibre Channel is the standard of reliability, availability, performance, all those characteristics that we talked about. That's inherently built into what we've collectively done with Fibre Channel. So yeah, it still plays a fundamental requirement, and whether that's Z with Ficon or whether it's distributed with Fibre Channel, in the protocol that's running there. Again, that's why everybody through the years has attempted to compare themselves to what we've historically done.
Well, thank you again, Brian, for joining us on this discussion of enterprise storage and why it's still the best plan for your data center infrastructure. I really appreciate your willingness to sit and chat through this. And for the folks who are watching today, thank you again for joining us.